welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I am your host, Jay, just Jay, your resident troublemaker and your resident culture warrior. I hope you are all doing well. You're probably seeing this video on Monday, after the Thanksgiving Day weekend here in the U.S. So I hope you all had a great holiday weekend. I hope you got to spend a lot of time with your friends and loved ones and eating a lot of that good old Thanksgiving Day dinner and stuff like that. For those of you outside the U.S. or who may not celebrate Thanksgiving, I also hope that you had an awesome weekend and got to have a hell of a lot of fun and enjoy yourself and spend time with family and friends and loved ones as well. All right, so let's get right into it. It's good to be back. Let's see. Let's go right into this article. This one comes from Startifacts, and this article, this is from today, by the way. It's from just earlier this morning. I am recording this on Sunday the 27th, so just to let you know. Rings of Power Season 1 was nothing more than a groundwork. The fun comes next. It's no secret Amazon's The Rings of Power was not received well by everyone. Despite some rather dubious attempts of censoring audience reviews early after the show's release, it is clear its first season did not quite achieve the standard fans were hoping for. However, this doesn't necessarily mean that the series is a lost cause yet. With a 5-season plan in place and plenty more of the story to tell, ROP could come back with something truly spectacular. Show writers and producers of the show, Ron MS, I'm assuming MS, and Chris Newman first pitched the idea as a 50-hour epic, which eventually became the series that will be depicted over a total of 5 seasons. Considering that the show is only one part of its way through the planned narrative so far, there is still a long way for ROP to go. Its first season has at most been an introductory one, establishing the audience to its new characters and reintroducing already familiar characters throughout its episodes. In a way, the season has acted as a bit of a teaser as well, hiding the identities of some of its prominent characters, foreshadowing what might come later in the future of the show. For instance, the ambiguous reveal of the Balrog and brief glimpses of Numenor's fate. Simply put, the show has spent its necessary time on its overall setup, and from this point on, it can deliver much more substance and imagination than its preliminary season. The benefit of the show's coming seasons is also the opportunity to make greater use of the books. Although ROP includes much of its own original story, it is still closely based on the world and works of Tolkien. Assuming much of the show's audience will also be fans of The Lord of the Rings, how the story will end won't be a surprise. But this is actually a major advantage for the series, being able to take Tolkien's lead. The show can spend much more time focusing on the details of the narrative, as opposed to having to explain in depth the meaning behind much of the plot's origin. Following seasons of the series will likely allow the audience to see more interesting content of the character's backstory and development that we have never seen before, especially for the likes of Galadriel and Sauron, whose perspective of events has never been thoroughly explored throughout the books. Focus can also be placed on the setting of Middle-earth, as later seasons are likely to explore more of the fictional landscape we know so well. Fans will get to witness these locations depicted as never seen before, the full formation of Mordor, maybe even some references to the discovery of the Shire. With the filming of the series now moved to Bray Studios in the UK, Amazon will likely go all out for the visual effects and scenery of the show, although some of the visual effects were questioned among fans throughout the first season. Fans on Reddit, for instance, had openly debated why the Balrog of 2001's Fellowship of the Ring looked better than its more recent but visually lacking counterpart for Season 1. Yet the series still has time to attend to some of its lacking areas, such as visual effects. It's only fair to give a show the time it needs to find itself. Based on Season 1 alone, ROP still has a long way to go before it reaches Peter Jackson's level of good, but arguably, it has at least achieved one of the hardest things already, which is getting started to begin with. Now that the show has laid its foundation, it can start building the series that fans really want, because from now on in the story, there is plenty to expect, including epic battles, heartfelt romances, forged friendships, and plenty of adventure, all the things fans love about Tolkien's original Lord of the Rings by Dan Bentley from earlier today. All right, so I mean, that I don't know about to you guys. To me, that seems sort of like the same old argument. Like, well, oh, it's only season one, and they had to sort of lay the groundwork. So, the fact that it was shit, you really can't call it shit because it was sort of locked into having to lay the groundwork for all these things. And so, no, it's still a show. Okay, it's supposed to be 5 seasons. We've already had season 1, which means, strictly speaking, we are 20% through this show in its entirety. We are 20% through the show, okay? So having completed 20% of the show, it's been crap so far. So that means 1/5 of this show we know for a fact, unarguably, unequivocally, is garbage, okay? In terms of both how it relates to Tolkien and the lore, as well as just as a TV show in general, okay, with its bad writing, bad visual effects, bad sets, well, with the exception of one. The port in Numenor looked really good. But otherwise, bad sets, bad acting, bad writing, bad pacing. So, being 20% through this show, 1/5 of the way through this show, and you've already screwed the pooch that thoroughly, I do not hold out a lot of hope. I could always be wrong, but I'm seriously doubting it, especially with how bad they do not adhere to the lore. Okay, and some people make the excuse like, oh, they only had the rights to the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and the appendices and stuff like that. Yeah, so what? The basic framework is laid out there, and you've gone completely against it. Okay, and that's just a fact. However, I will say, considering that season 1, again, 1/5 of this show, cost more than all 3 of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy films combined. Okay? I think it was $465 million was what the 3 Peter Jackson films cost, and season 1 of Rings of Power costs $480 million. I believe those are the correct numbers. If anybody has the exact numbers, post them down below. But either way, it's almost the exact same as what Peter Jackson spent on his 3 Lord of the Rings films. And obviously, we know how that played out. Okay, they're considered the gold standard for what a fantasy film adaptation should be. Okay, The Rings of Power spent that much money on 8 episodes for season 1, and failed on every front. Whether it be the visual effects, as they pointed out, people comparing the Balrogs, and the cut and paste job that they did with some of the crowds. There's a scene in one of the episodes where Bronwyn is giving that speech to the Southlanders and stuff, and you can clearly see that they did a cut and paste with the crowd that's around her, because apparently they couldn't get that many extras for whatever reason. But it was noticeable. So I mean, if this was laying the groundwork and getting us ready for the rest of the show, that's I wouldn't, in this particular case, I wouldn't use that as a selling point. Like, oh man, this was just to lay the groundwork. Now the real fun begins. It's like, if this was laying the groundwork with how bad of a job you did with it, I don't know. I'm scared for the rest of the show, but that's just my take. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments section below. Again, I am glad to be back. I had my little couple of days off, and it's time to get right back into it. I will talk to you guys on the next one. Remember, if you like the video, give the video a like, hit the bell for notifications. If you have not already, I hope you would consider subscribing. It will do the channel a lot of good, and it gets me out there, gets me, amongst the other people that are talking about Tolkien and stuff like that, so I can be the voice for you guys, so to speak. And if you already have subscribed, I thank you for honoring me with your subscription. I've got some plans coming up for some future stuff. I'm sort of holding off on wanting to talk too much about it, but it does involve a weekly live stream that I was thinking about doing. But, I'm sort of working out the fine details on that one yet. But there may even be some trivia with potential prizes. Don't know yet. It's still sort of in the planning phase, and we have to see logistically how this is going to work out. But there might be some trivia, throw out some trivia and you could win a prize or something like that. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, I will talk to you guys on the next one. Until then, be good, be safe, be happy. Peace.